And welcome back. I hope you're all doing well. Tonight or today, whenever it is you happen to be watching this video, we'll be covering part 3 of our Linux terminal usage. For those of you new to the series, we are talking about the commands that we use to get things done in the Linux terminal. We started off with some of the more common and basic commands and are currently working our way up to a bit more advanced. So if you haven't already watched part 1 and part 2 and or are new to Linux, I recommend going and checking those videos out first. A lot of the commands we talk about in those parts we use in part 3 moving forward, and I don't go back and revisit them. So I'm assuming you already watched those 2 parts and you know what make directory is and you know what sudo is and etc. Okay, so I think a couple of more parts of this series should do it, but if there happens to be enough interest, I may continue on for a bit further. I'll have to see how the views go on this video on part 3 and on part 4. Then I'll make my decision at that point. Okay, so with all that said, before we get started, let's talk about what commands we're going to talk about. chown, chmod, diff, top, du, and we're going to add users, remove users, and give those users a password, and then delete those passwords. All right, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about adding a user, because this is going to tie into our chown discussion in the next part. Let's say that you have a significant other, a friend, or just somebody else that you want to create an account for, a user for your particular machine. This is very simple to do. All we do is we type in sudo, put a space, we type in the word useradd, one word, useradd, put a space, and then you give a name to that new user. In my case, I'm going to use Junior for my Russian blue. I'm going to give him an account that he'll never use because he has paws and not fingers. And we'll hit enter, put in our password. And now Junior has been added. So there is Rave and now Junior on this machine. But let's say you want to assign a password to your new user, and that's easy enough as well. Just type in sudo passwd, one word, passwd, a space, and then type in the name of your newly added user. In this case, it's Junior, and it is case sensitive, by the way. Hit enter. Now it's going to ask you for the new password. So I'm just going to type in 1234. Hit enter. It's going to ask for it again to retype it to make sure it's consistent. Type in 1234 again, and the new password has been added. So now Junior has an account with his own password. All right, so let's say time goes on, your roommate moves out, you break up with your significant other, your cat runs away, whatever happens, and you need to remove that user off of your machine. So I like to go ahead and remove the password first and then remove the user. So I'll type in sudo. To remove a password, we're going to type in passwd, put a space and then a hyphen, lowercase d for delete. And then we're going to type in the name of the user. So that, in this case, that's Junior. Hit enter, and the password should be removed. Now let's take it a step further and just remove Junior completely. So to do that, we'll type in sudo user delete. So that's user, del, one word, a space, and then type in the word Junior, and that user is now gone. No longer on this system. All right, so this is going to tie into our next part. So I'm going to go ahead and recreate Junior because we're going to need this this new account for talking about chown. So I will see you there. I'm going to go ahead and recreate Junior, and then I'll see you in the next part. All right, so Junior has been re-added, and so what chown is changing the ownership of a directory. So that's pretty much all it is. It's very simple. And in this case, for our demonstration here today, I'm going to give ownership to a file in my home directory to Junior. We're already in our home directory, so let's go ahead and hit ls for list and let's check it out. What we have in here, quite a bit actually. So the Tor browser. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my file explorer, and I'm already in my home directory, and you can see that right now I currently have access to my Tor browser folder directory. I can go in here and manipulate it any way I see fit. I can access it and so forth. We're going to change that. So in order to change the ownership of the directory, we're simply going to type in sudo chown, one word, put a space. We're going to type in the word Junior, and then we're going to type in the name of the directory. So in this case, it's Tor browser. Hit enter, and we're good to go. So I'll come in here, and now you can see I no longer have access to the Tor browser directory. Junior does. So I'm going to cancel on that, and it says, oops, something went wrong. Don't have permission to access the requested location. All right, so I can't get in now. So I've changed the ownership. So let's say I want to get ownership back. So I can just type in sudo chown rave Tor browser, hit enter. Now I go back into the directory, or back into my home directory, and now I have access back to my Tor browser directory. I can go back in there just as before. So pretty straightforward, pretty simple. So let's go ahead and clear this out. And for housekeeping purposes, let me get rid of Junior, and I'll see you in the next section. All right, so let's take a quick look at the chmod command. So I've already sort of set this up ahead of time. I created a config file that we're going to mess with. So we're in the home directory. I'm going to show it to you here. It is test.config. So we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at this in our home directory. And you can see as you can see, it's locked. So when I click on this, I can't make any changes to it. So I do not have permission to change this configuration file. I can read it, I can scroll through it, and I can even add to it, type in whatever I want, but I have no option to save it, therefore I cannot modify it. But we can change that with chmod. So to do that, we're simply going to type in sudo chmod. And we're going to put a plus sign and a W for writing. That's giving us writing permissions. And we're going to type in the name of the file. In this case, it is test.config, conf. Hit enter, and we're good to go. Now, when we go into the directory, we can open up the configuration file, and then we can modify it accordingly. So I can come down here and add a bunch more information or commands, remove hashtags, put hashtags in to block something out, hit save, close it out, and now we're good to go. So if I go back into it, you can see our changes did in fact save. Now, when I want to take permissions away again, I simply go back to the terminal, type in sudo chmod -w, that's removing the write permissions, type in the name of the file, and we're good to go. So now if I go back into it, you can see I'm locked out again. Now this is a good practice to do for security reasons. A lot of files are protected for security reasons, so somebody can't get in there and do something malicious. But there are times when you do need access to a configuration file and you can't get in there because because permission has been denied to you. So using chmod will get you in there to make the necessary changes. And then once you finish it, just remember to go back in and remove those write permissions. Now that was a pretty rudimentary explanation of chmod. It's a lot more powerful than what I just demonstrated for you. But for the new user, and really for the most part for the average user, that's pretty much all you're going to use it for. Now, however, let me add a few points here that if you do a chmod and a hyphen and an uppercase R, that does change ownership of all the files in a particular directory. If you do a chmod and a hyphen lowercase v, that displays the ownership of altered files and folders in detail. If we go and do a chmod -c, that will only display output if ownership changes to files and directories that have been changed. So it's a pretty powerful tool. You can also change your permissions to make something executable. So let's say I wanted to make that test.config an executable, which obviously it's not, but let's say we can do sudo chmod +, x for executable, test.config. Let's see what happens. So now we have made it an executable file. And of course, to remove that, just types, actually, you know what, let's take a look at something here real quick. So if we come in here and we right click on our file, on our config file, go to properties, go to permissions, you can see execute, allow executable, or allow executing file as a program has been checked. So we can close that out, close this out. And let's get rid of that. Sudo chmod -x test.config, and let's go back into it and take another look at it. Right click on our file, go to properties, go to permissions, and now it has been changed. So we can check it in here obviously by hand using the graphical user interface, but what fun is that? After all, we're here for the terminal. And of course you can combine these. So if we go back to our home directory and we take a look at our test config, you can see that I do not have permissions to do any more writing on it, but we can change that, and we're going to make it executable at the same time. So to do that, we're just going to combine our commands. Sudo chmod, we're going to do a +, W for write, and X for executable, and then the name of our file. Test.config, hit enter. Now we go back in, and we can make the necessary adjustments and changes we need to, and then save it. But on top of that, if we go to our properties and go to our permissions, you can see now it is executable as well. So to remove those, you guessed it, sudo chmod -wx test.config, and we are back to normal. All right, so if you want me to do another video on chmod, maybe going into a lot more detail, let me know in the comments below, and I'll be more than happy to do that. But with that, let's move on to the next section. All right, so in previous videos, you've seen me using an application called Glances that we've installed multiple times. So Glances gives you kind of an overview of your system, processes in use, OBS, Xorg, and so on, your disk I/O, file systems, and your sensors, your temperature sensors, and everything else. Oh, by the way, a quick note here, if you're running an active application inside the terminal and you want to stop it, you just simply hit Q, lowercase q, and it takes you out of it, and or stops it. So I want to talk about top, the command top, T-O-P. What top does, it display, hold on, I have a cat messing with my mouse. Okay, so what top does, it is a command that displays system running processes and storage consumption. So we type in top, as I've already done, hit enter, and you can see it gives us a lot of the same information that Glances does. Only Glances is a bit more organized and easier to read. So we can see we have the command OBS has been running for 30 minutes, Xorg for 5 minutes, gnome shell, etc. And we have our user, which is either root or me, and so on and so forth, and our resources. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Q, close out of this, and then we're going to clear this out. And for those of you who remember the Linux file system, we have our PID ID over here, our PID, process ID, over here on the far left-hand side. And you can see up top, it shows us what our memory usage is and how much is free, how much we're currently using, our swap, and everything else. All right, so let's clear this out. And while we're here, let's go ahead and talk about the command df, lowercase d, lowercase f, displays the overall system disk usage. We'll hit enter, and you can see how much storage you have used and how much you have left, and so on. And it has where it's mounted, the percent of it being used, your available blocks, and how many blocks you've used, and of course, file system, tempfs, and your NVMe1, so on and so forth. Now, there's another way of doing this, actually, which I don't really use this command very much. I simply go down to my systems or my utilities folder, or no, sorry, my systems folder, and I go to my disk usage analyzer, and it gives you a much clearer picture and a much more precise picture of how your storage looks on your machine. So I'm going to close that out, and we're going to clear this and move on to the next section. All right, so one more thing I forgot to mention in my intro was that I wanted to show you how to create files on Linux using the terminal. So back to our home directory. Actually, you know what? I was in the documents messing around during a break. I think we need to go back into it. So change directory back to documents, and let's list what we have in there. We don't have any actual files. We just have a bunch of other directories. So to make a directory, or sorry, to make a file, make a text file in particular, you want to type in the word touch, T-O-U-C-H, a space, and then we'll create a text file called text, and we'll make another one called test1.txt, and then we'll hit enter, and we'll do our list, and there we have 2 text files. So if we go into our documents, let's go ahead and go in here, and you can see here they are. You can open them up, and we can modify them. Hello world, and hit save. And it's going to test1.txt. Hello world again. This is a test, and then we'll hit save and close it out. All right, so let's move on to diff. And what diff does, the command diff, D-I-F-F, diff shows the differences between two or more files. So in this case, we're going to type in diff, and let's compare test1.txt and test.txt. Hit enter, and you can see hello world again. This is a test. This is test 1, or is this test? No, test 1, and then hello world for test.txt. So quite simple, very straightforward. So let's go ahead and clear this out, and let's do a list. Let's go ahead and get rid of test 1 and test 2. Remove test1.txt and test.txt. Hit enter, back to list, and we're good to go. All right, so that wraps up this episode, or this part of our terminal walkthrough, our terminal course, I guess you could say. So if you have gotten something of value out of this, please consider leaving a like. And if you would like to see a more in-depth tutorial on chmod, please let me know in the comments. By all means, I'll be more than happy to put one together. So coming up next, we have part 4 coming up next week, and then part 5. And again, as I said in the intro, I'll kind of see what the viewership looks like on those two. And if I'm not quite breaking 100, I may go ahead and just move forward on it and move on to another topic. But if the views are looking pretty good, I'll continue on and we'll move on to some even more advanced types of commands. All right, so thank you all for watching, and I hope you stay safe out there and have a good one.